Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee, and golly, look, some of my favorite people are already here. We have Mitch J, um, and then Scott Hummer, and Little Lone Prepper. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to see you here. Um, so, just a couple of real quick announcements before we get into the book. Number one, um, Sunday, the 16th of April, is the Feast of Divine Mercy. And so that was kind of instituted by Saint Maria Faustina Kowalski. And that's going to be a very, very long day at church. Probably be there for about 6 or 7 hours. But that's how far I am into reading her diary. Not very far, but we are getting there, and we'll see how we do. So the 16th is the Feast of Divine Mercy. The other one I want to let you know. Hello, Tofu. Welcome. Another one of my favorites. Something else I want to inform you of is starting Monday. I will not have a Monday night anymore, starting the 17th. So the 17th is going away because Helen and I have enrolled in this class at the church, the Growing in the Virtuous Life, and that goes from 8 to 9:30 over at the parish. I'm sorry, 7 to 8:30, 7 to 8:30 at the parish. And it's basically the 7 deadly sins and 7 lively virtues. And so basically how to grow in a more virtuous life and get rid of sin in our life. And so we've enrolled in that. That's going to be 8 weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the Monday that would have been on the 17th to Wednesday the 19th. And then for 8 continuous weeks, we will be meeting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. So hopefully I'll have some interviews by then and some people to interview, and we'll see what we can do. Hi, Pat. No, that's okay, because for the first couple of minutes, I realized it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for people to get the notification that we're live. And so I kind of just ramble on for the first couple of minutes. You don't miss anything significant other than maybe some announcements you might want to go back and catch if you are more than just a couple of minutes late. So anyhow, so the news there is that there is no Monday night the 17th. Instead, it'll be Wednesday the 19th, and that'll be the first of 8 consecutive weeks that we'll be doing on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And that's going to be the interview, the discussion, the hour-long recitation of whatever. I sure would appreciate it if somebody would do some research, come up with a topic that they would like to discuss, and then join me on these interview nights. If we don't have an interviewee, I would just, gosh, to get you exposed, to get your thoughts and your ideas and impressions out to the public would be so fantastic. Cat Lady Homestead, hello, welcome. So don't forget, click the like button and subscribe if you aren't already. And we'll go ahead and get started with this. So we're doing tonight. We are doing. Let me get back up here. I'm going to highlight that for you. And of course, the Avalon link or Amazon link for this book is going to be in the show notes down below. We're doing chapters 13 and 14. So chapter 13 is frequencies, flags, and flares, basically communications. And then chapter 14 is I'm hurt, now what? So what do you do about first aid and things like that in a post-apocalyptic world? And I'll share something that may be shocking to you that is my personal opinion. I also got another opinion on something else, watching another website today, and I'll share that with you. But it kind of supports where I have been. So let me get into this, and let's take a look at these 2 chapters. And I think they're fairly fantastic. So chapter 13, frequencies, flags, and flares. Really, he's talking pretty much about the different types of communication systems that are out there and available to you to communicate with people line of sight. Hello, Marie 2024. And Holly Ivans, hello, welcome. And so the granddaddy of all the communications, as far as easy to get to and everything else, is Citizens Band Radio, CB Radio, and that's the granddaddy. When I first got involved with CB Radio back in the 70s or mid 70s, it was only 19 channels, and then they expanded it to 40. And but still, channel 19. If you have a CB radio and you're driving on the freeways and everything else, channel 19 is the channel. They changed that channel when they go to California. I think they go to channel 23. But anyhow, truckers all use 19 in 49 states out of 50, and then they go to a different one when they're in California. The other one there that is significant for you to know is channel 9 is the emergency channel. So usually most highway patrol and people like that are going to have a CB monitor in their patrol car, and they're going to be monitoring channel 9 in case you have an emergency while you're on the road. So that's kind of just an accepted thing. Just remember 9 like 911, and you've got it made for CB radio. The next one is less well known, and this one's not that old. It's only about 20 years old, and it's called MERS, M-U-R-S, and it's the multi-use radio service. It was actually designed for ranches and farms and things like that. It's only got like 5 channels, and these are going to be in the VHF spectrum between 151.82 and 154.6, and they're going to be FM voice. So frequency modulated. So they're pretty good communications. They're short range. They're line of sight, probably going to be about 12 to 15 miles. But if you are a rancher or a farmer, this is so you can communicate between the house and a tractor out plowing or something like that. But they also use it for a lot of detection devices. So you can have like a ring type of an instrument on your fence post out at the entrance to your establishment, and that is allowed to communicate with your home on the MERS frequencies. So you can use it both for voice as well as for data or communications type stuff. The next one is going to be FRS GMRS, and so that's the Family Radio Service, or the General Mobile Radio Service, GMRS. And these are going to be primarily in the UHF spectrum. They go between 462.56 to about 462.725. And so these are also all going to be FM voice. And you don't have to have a license. So with FRS, you pay I think it's a $25 licensing fee, and that licenses everybody in your family. So you don't have to have, I said you don't have to have a license. That's not what I meant. You don't have to take a test, a knowledge test. You do have to have a license, but all you have to do is apply for it. You get it automatically. And then everybody who is on your network, your immediate family, is, I think it's up to 10 stations, is included in that family radio service on your registration and your call sign. So that's a great one to have, FRS GMRS. Fantastic radio system to have, especially for your families, if you're within line of sight of each other. Then, of course, the daddy of them all is ham. I'm old enough to know that ham is more than the Yaesu YE6 and the what's the other one? I want to say DT5, but there are 2 major VHF, UHF transceivers, handheld transceivers. And what they do is they communicate with VHF, UHF repeaters on towers. And so if the everything goes down, then you don't have those repeaters, and these are going to become line of sight radios, just like GMRS and FRS. They are not going to be what you would typically call as ham. When I think of ham, I'm thinking of the the origins of ham-fisted keyboardists, DITA Alpha, DITA Bravo, and all that kinds of stuff, as far as sending Morse code on a continuous wave, usually in the 12 to 20 meter band, which is going to be somewhere around 2 to 15 megahertz. And they're going to be amplitude modulated, or they're going to be continuous wave modulated. Hello, Triple G Farms. Welcome. And So, and as a matter of fact, Triple G Farms asked a great question here last time, as far as which one we recommend. And I'll get it. I'll put that in the show notes as well. I joined our local ham club. I want to get my license. I want to operate the HF, 12 to 20 meter shortwave ham, which is the AM amplitude modulated or continuous wave modulated systems that are usually either Morse code or upper sideband, lower sideband voice. So that's what I want. Why? Because those, even with only 5 to 100 watts, you can go international because of the skip. Okay, it goes up into the troposphere, bounces, and comes back down to Earth. And then it can bounce off the Earth and go back up into the atmosphere again. So typically with an HF ham radio, the original ham radios, you can communicate around the world. As a matter of fact, we used to have MARS, which was Military Affiliated Radio Service, MARS. When I was in Germany, we could go down to the Bundespost and you could pay an arm and a leg to call the US to talk to somebody here in the US. Or you could go down to the Bundespost and you could make a collect call to somebody here in the US, and it was just as expensive. Or you could go to your local Mars station and make an appointment, and they had like 5 minutes that you could talk to your family members, but it was all done over HF radios. So you would say something, I love you, and then say over, and then they would come back and say, I love you too, over. And so that's how the conversation went, because you always had to do the over to get back and forth between the two. You couldn't have, like on a cell phone, both of you talking at the same time. Hello, Del Rugby. Welcome. Dragon Slayer. Welcome. So that's kind of where we are. So where does the amateur radio frequency range? Well, you've got the 160 meter band, which is very low HF, and that's going to be 1.2 to 2 megahertz. You've got the HF 80 meter band, 3.5 to 4 megs. 60 meter band, you got 4 or 5 different frequencies in there. The 40 meter band is 7 to 7.3. You get all the way up to the 23 centimeter band, okay? And that's going to be up in the UHF, VHF area. But when you get there, it's going to typically be data. It's going to be continuous wave data. So let me see here. They talk about the QYT 8900 mobile radio. It's compact and powerful. One of the things that they told me here when they do ham radio fests, pretending like they're going to be setting up in case of a emergency, they go through AA batteries like you would not believe. He said when they go to a typical ham fest, if they're transmitting for 24 hours a day for 2 days, 48 hours, they're going to go through a couple cases of AA batteries. So just beware. If you're going to get into HF ham radio, you're going to need some sort of a power supply. And typically they're going to be 12 volt power supplies, so you can run them off of a vehicle. So just beware of that. They aren't going to be, something where you're going to have lots of power available to you. Let me catch up with with the chat up here. And so let me see. So Little on Purpose says she's going to have to watch this again and take notes. My recommendation is get the book, and that's going to be the best thing for you, so you don't have to take that much notes. And then let me see what we got down here. Yeah, and my question, and I'm not smart on this. My thought would be, why not have a solar system that goes to 12 volt DC and then just use that during the daytime? You could probably use a solar backup battery, something like a Jackery or something like that. You would think that would provide the power instead of going through all these AA batteries. But I take them at what they tell me, and I am definitely not an expert there. I'm a absolute novice. So I think that's one of the best ideas that I've heard in a while. get a whole bunch. I want to get one of those battery cases, the plastic ones that have AA, AAA, C's, D's, and everything else in it, so that I can carry a whole bunch. And I want them to be rechargeable because I do have that little Goal Zero battery recharge solar charger for batteries. And so I want to make sure I have that available and I can recharge them when I need to. Yeah, so Triple G agrees with me on that. Let me see here. There's 6 AA. I'll have to look for it, and I'll put a link in the show notes. There's 6 AA battery recharger that plugs into a solar. It's a USB port, and it can plug into solar. I'll find it. Mine is Goal Zero, so I'll look for Goal Zero and see if I can't find it for you. Baofeng is what I was thinking of. UV5R. Thank you. That's the one I couldn't think of. The Yaesu YE6 and then the Baofeng UV5R. Those are the 2 transceivers that are typically going to be in the high VHF, low UHF frequency range, and they are basically line of sight, but they're going to be operating through repeaters that are mounted on a lot of these telecommunications towers. So if you lose power and you lose that repeater, then basically what you've done is you just changed that what you consider to be a ham radio back into just a local walkie-talkie. Okay, so Triple G Farm says he found it on Amazon as well. I'll look again and I'll put some more in the show notes. Triple G, if you find it and you email me that link where you found it on Amazon, I'll be happy to put that in the show notes for you. So then it talks pretty much after that, mostly about going with how do you get the power for your systems, and then how do you create a communication plan? So on your communications plan, there are so many frequencies available. How do you? So question number 1 is, how do you set up a plan so that people know which frequency you're going to be on, or which? Thank you, Triple G. Which frequency you're going to be on, or how you're going to operate, and you want to change. That's number 1. So everybody needs to know that they're on the same channel on the same day. Number 2, how do you change those on a regular basis so that they are somewhat illogical in the way that they're changing, so that somebody listening in on you won't be able to listen in on you without going to some effort to find you again once you change frequencies. And then, when do you change frequencies? I hated Zulu. Midnight Zulu is when everybody in the Army changes all their code systems, changes all their encipherment gear, changes their frequencies, call signs. Everything changes at Midnight Zulu. And I tell you, with the old KY8 encryption system, it was a sandwich. And the keyboard sandwich that you plugged into the encipherment system that's told how to jumble everything. Sometimes it would take us almost an hour to get back in communications with anybody. So, if anybody attacks right around Midnight Zulu, we're probably going to be in a desperate situation if we haven't made any improvements over where we were when I was on active duty. Yes, and I agree. NOAA radio station. I have one next to my bed. I have one in here. I have one in my Faraday bag. You want to have a NOAA, that's National Oceanic and Geologic, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. There we go, NOAA. And so that's going to be your emergency weather radar radio. So especially since we're here in Tornado Alley, Triple G and I are both in Tornado Alley. And so we need to have the NOAA radios available to us almost all the time. Right now, the bluebonnets are out. I'm going to do a short 1-minute video on bluebonnets here in Central Texas. And so bluebonnets indicate the beginning of 2 different seasons here in Texas. Number 1 is tornado season. Number 2 is western diamondback rattlesnake season. So, if you see the bluebonnets out, you know that you've got tornadoes coming and rattlesnakes coming. And that's just the way it goes. So a Baofeng usually is going to reach about line of sight. So you have to have it's a visual line of sight type of a radio system. It doesn't have any tropospherics. So you have to have a repeater within line of sight of it. That is why what they try to do is they try to get these tall transmitting antennas, and then they'll put a repeater associated with those tall antennas, whether that be telecommunications or whether it be radio or television or anything like that, because that extends the distance. If you've got something, so if you've got a ball, okay, let's take, I'll use this. So you're here, and the other person is here. So you don't have line of sight with each other. Notice that there's the curvature of the earth in between. So if you can get your antenna up here with your repeater at a higher altitude, so that you're not trying to go through the earth, but instead you're transmitting up to that antenna, and then the antenna is receiving it and transmitting it down past the curvature of the earth, that's what gives the Baofeng and the Yaesu extended range to where you can actually talk to Europe as long as the repeater system is up. If there is an EMP or a CME or anything happens to that repeater, then you lose that capability to communicate with other Baofengs and Yaesu YE6s. I hope that kind of explains how that goes. Okay. Yeah, it is getting expensive. And I really want an HF 12 to 20 meter transceiver, and they're expensive. They're like $2,300. And then to get a good, they said that I told them I wanted a Yagi plane antenna that I could transmit, because it depends on how you transmit, whether you transmit with horizontal polarization or vertical polarization. And so the ham club told me there are people who have been doing ham for a long time who want a Yagi antenna. Those are so expensive that most of us don't have. I've never looked into the price. He says a lot of us just use either a whip with a plane on it, or we use a long wire antenna. And so long wire antenna is very, very bidirectional, plus or minus about 10 degrees. So if I set up my long wire in my backyard to transmit east-west, that's all it's going to do is transmit and receive east-west. It's not going to receive north-south. So that's one of the difficulties with radio communications, especially with ham radio. Here, let me scroll down here. Thank you. Hello, Pete. Gosh, you've had some good ones out recently. Thank you very much. You and I need to talk. I want to get you back on the channel again. Next Monday is the last Monday. And I'll repeat that. I said it at the beginning. My wife and I have enrolled in a class at the church, this one here, and it's called Growing in the Virtuous Life. So it's going to be at the church from 7 to 8:30 on Mondays, beginning Monday the 17th. So for 8 weeks, starting Monday the 17th, instead of being on Monday nights, we're going to be on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, because I'll be at church studying how to be a little bit more virtuous and sin a little bit less, and see if I can't be a little bit gooder of a person in how I am and how I deal with other people. Yes, you're absolutely right there, Holly Ivans, that the important thing is that we are moving towards a goal, and that we have plans on what we need and prioritizing so that we can get there. So in a community, this is one of the advantages of having a community. Before we moved here, our bigger house back where we were before, I had a creek one house away. There was a spring. There was a what do you call them? The kind of springs that pop up out of the earth and then makes a little creek. I keep wanting to say Eurasian, but that's not it. But anyhow, so it was one of those springs that just pops up out of the earth and then and water comes down. So that was only one house away from my house, and we were on the side of a hill. Everything was great. It was a great location. One entry, one exit. Everything was just fantastic about it, except that it was way too big for two people and too much to maintain. But in that, I had a group there of about 3 people, and one of those people was a doctor, and he had a ham radio setup. So that's why I didn't spend that much into it, because he kind of covered for us. See if you can find somebody in your group that has the money, get the license, and then go over and pal with them and use their equipment. Uh, just join the local ham radio club, and they'll get you into it. They'll help you even find used and cheap equipment. That's what they're doing with me. Thank you, Triple G. Appreciate that. As a matter of fact, we have a retreat coming up. We fell short of our fundraising last month, and we've got more. We're getting more and more people needing assistance with housing, food, payment of electric, and things like that. As prices go up, and people are losing their jobs on a regular basis. I mean, golly. And of course, because we have increased prices and we still have some sort of an income, our income is not going as far. So our donations are going down. So we've got increased demand with reduced donations. And so, I can rest assured, you can rest assured, the vast majority of that's going to go to a very good cause. Very little of it's going to go towards shipping. I've got a lot of great prizes for when we reach the mark as far as our goal for the size of our channel and growth and everything else. Let me see here. Oh yeah, and the last one that the roaming prepper put out, he and I had a discussion. I was on a live with him. Oh, when we had the big balloon over the U.S. and we were trying to strategize what it was, and he and I were both saying that it was probably SIGINT and or FOTINT. And so it was announced today that yes, it was both SIGINT and FOTINT, and that they were transmitting all kinds of detailed information back to the communist China, of both the photo intelligence that they were gleaning as well as the signals intelligence they were gleaning while the balloon was over our country. So he put out a video today, and I put it on a Yahoo. We were right on his comment on his video. So I think Pete hit the nail on the head with that one. Neighbor has a 60-foot antenna. Looks like he has. Oh wow! Phenomenal. Yeah, there's a good friend for you. Make sure you stay good graces with him. Yes, you can. Okay, so let me, gosh, do me a favor. After the video is over, do a search for USASA, United States Army Security Agency, Field Station Augsburg, AUGSBURG. Okay, and then do images. Don't do the words. Do the images, and you're going to see Field Station Augsburg. And we had a system of about 12 of these. That's the ANFLR9 HFDF array. So the HFDF array for the ANFLR9 took up about the size of 12 football fields. That's how big this antenna array is. And yes, we could DF HF signals. However, remember that there's a difference between transmitting and broadcasting. So transmitting, you're sending to a particular person, okay? So you're going to usually use some sort of a directional beamed signal so that other people don't intercept you. They don't want us listening to it or even DFing it. And so when that happens, you're going to be pretty much along a beam, and it's going to have, plus or minus 5-10 degrees along that beam where you're transmitting. On the other hand, if you're broadcasting, now sometimes like emergency action messages are broadcast to the entire country. So when you do an emergency action message, that's on a singular antenna, whip antenna, with one element that's going up, and that's going to be a 360-degree transmission, so that if you transmit 360 degrees, then several different fuel station Augsburg, Misawa, um, who else had one? They had one in England. Hawaii had one. All these different places could then begin that DFing because that signal is seen by so many different intercept sites. Yeah, so what happens is that what they would do is we had a blade antenna that fit on the PRC, what we call the PRIC 77, PRC 77, and it was a simple blade antenna. And what you usually saw was it had the capability, because it was a blade, kind of like those slap wrist bracelets that you see. That's the same shape of the blade on a PRC 77, and so we would typically fold it over in half so it wouldn't get caught in the brush while you're moving through the jungle. Well, of course, that also reduces your transmission capabilities and your reception capabilities. So what they did was they tried to boost it, and they'd take a slinky that was made out of a metal, and they would do it down at the bottom half of that PRC 77 before they bent it over, and that would increase the overall amount of metal that was actually transmitting and receiving, so that we could speak and hear better. Okay, let me see here. Where are we? Well, and you can do that. So you can throw just a simple wire. I'll tell you, we used so we put up two poles. We had a simple wire, and that's how we did our HF communications for teletype with the uh, uh, what was it? VRC 124, I believe it was. Radio teletype rig, HF radio teletype rig. So I would have 8 of those hooked up to my van out in the field, and I'd have a couple satellites, and I'd have a whole bunch of VHF, and I had an MSC 29, which is a landline radio teletype and radio communication switchboard that would plug into me. I had 180 different channels of information coming into my TCAC, Technical Control and Analysis Center, at the core level. So one of them, when I was with 307th MI Battalion, the Sergeant Robinson was out, and he couldn't get Corps headquarters on the HF teletype. And so I went down to try to help him. And what had happened was you have 2 different frequencies. One's for transmit, and that's your TX, and one's for receive, and that's your RX. And he had inverted the two. So he had plugged into his receiver the transmit frequency, and he had plugged into his transmitter the receive frequency. He had it all messed up. I said, "Oh, Sergeant Robinson, this is the year of sunspots." And they taught you about, oh gosh, what they call them? Harmonics. So did they teach you how to calculate the first harmonic for your transmitting frequency? He said, yeah. I said, well, figure it out. And he said, okay. And so, we came down to where it was something like um, 3 megahertz. So I said, okay, so that means we have to induce your harmonic. You have to stand outside and flap your arms exactly 30 times per minute. And that will induce the signal into the antenna. He said, okay, Chief, that sounds kind of weird. I said, just try it. So I got in his truck, and I started plugging in the right frequencies. Well, on an HF radio, you have what they call a BFO pitch. That's beat frequency oscillator pitch. And so you have this oral null. So when you're getting close to the signal, it's kind of a high pitch. And then as you're getting closer to the signal, it goes down in lower in tone until you get to what they call the oral null, which is no noise at all. That means you're perfectly centered on that signal. So I cranked up the volume on it so he would hear it, and I had him flapping his arms. I said, just a little bit faster. And so he did it just a little bit faster. I got it down to the oral null. I said, maintain that. That's perfect. We've got him up on the radio. And so here this poor staff sergeant is out flapping his arms in the field. And The brigade commander and the battalion commander both came up, a colonel and a lieutenant colonel. And here the staff sergeant's flapping his arms, and this colonel says, "Don't you salute officers in the field, soldier?" And he says, "No, sir, I'm inducing harmonics into my radio antenna." So the battalion commander said, "You're what?" And the brigade commander and I had been together before. He was my company commander long back in the Vietnam era. And he said, "Is this 307th MI battalion?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Do you have a warrant officer here by the last name of?" And he gave my last name. He says, "Yeah, he's in my truck." He said, "I had a feeling he was around here somewhere." And so he ran over and jumped on the back of the truck, opened the door and yelled at me. He says, "Quit messing with the troops." So I got in a little bit of trouble for messing with the troops. But, all is well in love and warfare, right? Um, okay, let me see where we are. That's where my daughter and her husband are moving to, Holly. They're moving to Somerville. Uh, so I guess every state has a Somerville. Let me see. Thank you, Hello Tofu. I appreciate you putting out all those links on people's different channels. I don't know if I've told you or not. The easy way to do that is the three dots over to the right of their comment. If you click on that, the first option is go to their link. Click on that; it opens up their link in a new window. It opens up their channel in a new window. Then you can go up to the URL, copy paste, and then putting it down. Then you can get it just done. You can just bang, 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 and do everybody very, very quickly. Um, so I hope I've taught that to you before. Yes, food and money are just going out the door like you would not believe, and I have a feeling it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better whatsoever. Um, I just hit new comments, so it looks like I skipped a whole bunch of comments by doing that. Uh, Thank you for your kind words, Holly. I appreciate that. Um, I don't know anything about ISA or gray fox, so I have to be honest there. That's you've caught me unawares. If you can tell me what you know about it, then I can do some research in it and let you know at a future date. Um, so that's one of the biggest problems we have, Pete, with both summer as well as in when we have spring break and we have holiday breaks and everything else. We have in our Title One schools, we have an awful lot of children. That when school is in session, the breakfast and lunch they get at school is the only food they get every day. So when school is not in session, they are basically starving. And that's something that we need to take into consideration as well. How can we help them? How can we keep the kids fed so that they can learn? Um, Take care, Pete. Hello Tofu is fantastic. I am so grateful, and so is Triple G Farms. I think both of them are moderators. If anybody wants to be a moderator and you're here on a regular, consistent basis, please let me know either in the comments or send me an email, and we can make that happen. So my rules for my commentator or for my moderators, and this is kind of how I operate. I want a kind, respectful, polite environment. I want you to follow YouTube rules so that I don't lose my channel. There are certain things that we're not allowed to talk about because it's considered disinformation and you can lose your channel. So they don't like talking about the things that are going on over in Europe right now. We have to kind of talk around it. We don't want to say, the two countries' names in conjunction with being at war or anything like that. They don't want that disease that was prevalent in the 2020. They don't want any mention of it. They think that there's a lot of disinformation about it. You can lose your channel for that. They don't want too much gun talk and everything else. Actually, we can talk about guns, but if you do that, you demonetize your channel. So there's just some things that we want to do. So I would ask if you want to be a moderator, just do me a favor, help moderate that, and just encourage people to be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. And then if they violate the rules, you can put them in timeout, and if they continue to violate the rules, then we can basically ban them from the channel. I don't think we banned anybody yet, but we have put a couple people in timeout. Um, So, Holly, one of the things I'm going to recommend to you is yes, old Crisco. Once it becomes rancid, then I would use that as an emergency candle. But don't buy Crisco for the purpose of using it as a candle because right now candles are so very inexpensive. I usually, if I when I go to Dollar General or the dollar stores, they have 6 12-hour emergency candles for $1.50. I mean, that is phenomenal. And so I probably have a case of those in our bathroom. That the very bottom of our bathroom is all dedicated to candles. And so I probably have a case of those. You can also get the religious candles, okay? And they are a 20, so the tall glass one. I think you've seen them in a couple of my haul videos. Those are good for 24-hour burn, and those are $1.50. So getting candles right now is really inexpensive, and I would recommend those two for you: the emergency candles at the dollar stores, as well as the religious candles at the dollar store. If you don't like the religious theme on it, it's just a sheet of plastic that's wrapped around a glass container. You can take a Zippo knife or a razor blade or something like that, cut through it, and it'll come off. That way you just have a straight candle instead of a religious candle. Since they are Catholic and I'm Catholic, I just keep the religious stuff on them, so it doesn't bother me at all. How would a radio hook up to an antenna? Uh, so yeah, the slinkies, what we did was we would just we'd take little bitty wire and we would kind of twist tie it to the antenna so that there was constant contact. Um, wow, go for it. I'm still waiting for the 8 panels that I ordered extra, so I'll now have 24 panels on my roof, which is 90% of my peak. Actually, it's going to be 100% of peak consumption. So I'm going to be overproducing here at the house. But I wanted that for summer so I could run my air conditioner. But I signed that contract the 27th of December, and it's still not producing yet. We're still waiting. They finally got it installed last Friday, and now not Friday, a week ago Friday, and now we're waiting on one more permit from the electric company, and then we're going good to go. Uh, So the one that I recommend that you can do now, so you're not going to be wasting Crisco because Crisco is getting expensive as well, is the tuna can stove. So, and I did a video on that, but basically what you do is you take a tuna can, you use the side opening, the safety can opener, pull the lid off, take out the tuna, wash it out, cut your cardboard to about an eighth of an inch more shallow than the top of the can. Roll corrugated cardboard in there really tight so that the core is going up and down. So all those holes in the cardboard are going up and down, and then melt some paraffin and pour it in there. And the cardboard then becomes a wick, and the paraffin, of course, is the fuel. And you've got a fantastic heating and or lighting device that's just as good, if not safer, than the Safe Fuel or the Sterno camp stove that has the alcohol flame. So yeah, so you can do that, and I strongly recommend that. AAA, AA batteries are the ways to go. Almost everything medical for our family member with diabetes is AAA. So we have to be concerned about that as well. Okay, who's your prepping nurse? Welcome. Good to see you. Um, Let me see here. Bee Farms. Oh, wow. No, no, I don't know anything about that. The one that I am familiar with, and it may be part of that, or it may be just a different name. When they first formed it, it was called the El Paso Intelligence Center, EPIC, and so that is basically DHS, FBI version of an NSA intercept site, and it's actually at Biggs Air Force, not Biggs Air Force Base, Biggs Army Airfield now. It changed, I guess, when I was in high school, from Biggs Air Force Base to Biggs Army Airfield. But it's located on Biggs, and it may be the same thing. It just may have changed names. But from what I understand, yes, they were critical in. And I saw on the news today that Mexico is extraditing a chief, one of the higher ups, not the absolute highest guy, but one of the top guys in the Sinaloa cartel, and he's being extradited to the U.S. for trial for international terrorism and drug trafficking. Um, Holly, you're doing fine, and yes, and so what I would do is I would say make a list of what are your priorities that you want to learn, and as we go through these books, because we try to do something in the sense of somebody who's written a book on how to survive whatever's coming, and so this is about the fourth book that we've done, and so there are some great books out there that you can get. You can go back and look at some of these and get some ideas. Some of the people who follow me, who are in the comments here, have some of the best suggestions. They teach me on a regular basis too. So make sure you follow them and follow their channels. They put out some great content as well. Um, and then the other one is, and I have heard, I haven't tried it yet. I need to try it. But I bought one of those um, kerosene lanterns at Walmart. Somebody said they leak. They haven't had good experiences with them. I need to get. I've got a couple jars or cans of kerosene lamp oil, and I've got a couple extra wicks. I understand that those are available, and I think I've got two of them. I got to test those, but somebody said that they aren't that well made, the ones you get at Walmart. And if they aren't that well made at Walmart, you might want to go to Tractor Supply. I believe that the ones at Walmart have some plastic in them, whereas the ones at Tractor Supply are all metal. Um, so we can that would do you as that would also do you extremely well, and they do provide a source of heat. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. There we go, Dragon Slayer, the kerosene lanterns, and beeswax for candles, absolutely. And let me see here. Black Guns and Gardens, welcome. I don't remember seeing you before. Welcome very much. Appreciate you. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And if and I'll put the invite on here. I told you I would, and then I didn't. I'm sorry for that. But anytime I try to get here, if anybody wants to come on and help me and give their ideas about what we're discussing, feel free to click on that link, and I'll click you in, and you get your opportunity to tell people your opinions about the subject we're discussing. Um, Dragon Slayer, you are so right, and like I am a mod for a couple other channels, for and the one thing that I don't like about being a mod, and you can get Hello Tofu and Triple G Farms, uh, is, opinion on this as well, and maybe it's just my old age and my inability to multitask as well as some of these younger, far more intelligent people like Triple G Farms and Hello Tofu, but my problem is I focus on the chat and doing my job of moderator and don't have an opportunity to listen to the outstanding content that's being generated. So by being a moderator on a couple channels that I just really, really admire, I find that what I do is I become disassociated from the content of what the speaker's saying and focus way too much on what the content of the channel chat is. And that can be kind of disheartening, because I think sometimes they really have some great things to discuss, and they have some really great opinions that I need to pay attention to. Okay, let me see here. Okay, we're all caught up there. Now, let's for the last 20 minutes, the next chapter is I'm hurt, now what? So basically, he doesn't get that much into um, what you need to do as far as first aid or anything else. He does have a little comment here about sutures. And it turns out that A. American and Alan Kay's idea about sutures and mine are parallel, just like this. My thought about sutures is, remember, if you're trying to close a wound, do you know when to suture? So the theory is that the cut has to be longer than it is deep. If it's deeper than it is long, then that's a puncture wound, and you don't close puncture wounds. The second thing is, every time you put a stitch in, so let me mark my place here. So you got two folds of skin. So that needle is going to penetrate here. You've got one more puncture wound. It's going to go over here. You've got a second puncture wound. So every time you try to put one stitch in to close one area of a wound, you're adding two puncture wounds. What does that do? That triples your opportunity for infection. So you've got to make sure that you've absolutely cleaned out that wound before you seal it shut, because if you've got some sort of dirt or any kind of um, obnoxious material, let's put it that way, inside the wound, and then you seal that inside there, you're asking for infection. So unless you've really cleaned the wound and you know it's free of anything that can cause infection, you don't want to seal it shut. Then when you do seal it shut, why do you want to increase the opportunity for infection by adding more punctures and more pain, to be honest with you? Why not just use a Steri-Strip or a zip closure or some medical glue? There's all kinds of opportunities, other things, butterfly closures that you can use that are going to be much safer especially in a non-sterile environment. And then you can remove those as time goes on to make sure that you've got a good clean wound before you once again close that wound and bandage it. So he agrees with me on suturing is not for those of us who are not trained and not in a sterile environment. And the same thing goes for a skin stapler. You remember that staple is basically accomplishing the same thing as a suture. So when it goes in, it's going to clamp, and when it does, it's got a piercing action with metal on this side of the skin, metal on this. You're adding two more puncture wounds, just like you are with a suture system. So I try to avoid those. Triple G is our pharmacist here, and so he's kind of trained in this. And he talks about super glue being a good option, as well as contact lens solution for irrigating. There are pressurized sterile saline solutions you can get. I buy them at HEB, which is our grocery store here in Texas, our big grocery store. I also buy them at Walmart. You can get them at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, but they have these cans of pressurized sterile saline wash solution. I probably have 36 cans of it here in the house. And the reason is because you're going to use that, has a little bit of pressure, almost like being underneath the faucet, washing a wound. So you can use that. You can direct the spray of that nozzle towards the injury, and it's going to wash it out. It'll, what they call irrigate in medical terminology. So it'll wash that wound out. Then you can begin doing your first aid on it as far as closing the wound and dressing it, applying a topical antibiotic and all that kinds of stuff. So, I strongly recommend pick up a couple cans of that pressurized sterile saline wash. They also come in a version that I really like, and I think it's called Meta Wash, I believe is the manufacturer. I've got mine from Amazon. I'll put a link down below in the show notes. But it's got basically a trigger squeeze bottle. so that you can adjust the amount of pressure that you're using to wash to irrigate the wound based upon the amount of pressure, how much pressure you're putting on that trigger finger. And it's got a very nice adjustable spray as well. So it's just fantastic as far as irrigation, and that's what I would strongly recommend. He talks about IFAKs, individual first aid kits. If you're going to have a group of people, one of the things that we really emphasize in the military, our individual IFAK is actually on our right shoulder, upside down. Everything is in it in a certain place, and every soldier is exactly the same. Nobody changes it. And the reason is because your IFAK is going to be used on you. You aren't going to use it on other people. So if you are in need of a dressing or you're in need of a pain medication or something like that, every other soldier knows exactly where your kit is, what the contents are, where those contents are, and they can use it to save your life. So if you're going to have a group of people, one of the better things you can do is in your group agreement, agree upon one IFAK, individual first aid kit, and make sure that that is the common first aid kit that everybody has in your system. Now, so the one that I use, I got from Echo Sigma, and so I've modified it a little bit in the fact that I have pupil. Um, Gosh, where is it? Down here it is. I've got a small pupil flashlight, okay, so I can check on the pupils. I've got uh, some bandage shears. I got trauma shears. I've got a couple hemostats. I got another bandage shear here on the outside so that I can stop any arterial bleeding or venal bleeding that is exposed. Up here, in place of a tourniquet, I have an Israeli battle dressing. And so the Israeli battle dressing has a locking bar on top of it that basically applies pressure almost as much as a tourniquet, but not quite. And my tourniquet is actually staged at the top of my everyday carry bag. I showed you it used to be an HEB shopping bag. Then I changed it over and now it's a bank bag. Frost Bank. So I figured that's kind of nondescript. Nobody knows what's in there if I'm carrying a Frost or an HEB shopping bag. And so this is what I carry for an IFAK with my modifications. And then I have my staged tourniquet on my everyday carry bag. One thing, and we have to talk about the morality of it. We have to talk about, and I think it's a very serious subject, and that is in a post SHTF environment. If you put a tourniquet on somebody to save their life, remember that a tourniquet can only be removed by competent medical authority because they're going to have to surgically repair that hemorrhage in order for them to remove the tourniquet. Okay, so they can either cauterize it, sew it, whatever the surgeon does, whatever the physician does to remove that tourniquet. Otherwise, you really haven't, it's not going to coagulate or anything. So once you open it up, expose it, it's going to continue to bleed. So it can only be removed by competent medical authority. So if in a post SHTF environment, and we know that there is no physician available, if we put a tourniquet on somebody and there's nobody there to take it off, remember that without blood and oxygen, that your skin goes what they call moribund, which is an active state of decay. And when it goes moribund, that's what causes gangrene to fester. So, we aren't killing them by letting them bleed to death. We're killing them instead by a terrible infection. So you kind of have to ethically ask yourself, if there's nobody there to repair it, should I ethically put it on in the first place? And then that's a question you're going to have to ask yourself, that you're going to have to come to terms with. Any kind of alcohol is a great wound cleaner. It's a disinfectant, and so if you don't have any other alcohol, and it's going to burn, sting like you would not believe, almost as bad as a clotting agent burns. But yeah. So Triple G agrees with the pressurized cans of sterilized saline water. Um, I understand goats are the best. Goats, chickens, and pigs are the three best to have in a post SHTF environment. Cat Lady Homestead, I will subscribe to you. I will check that out and take a look at it. So we'll see what you've got there. Let me see here if I can do it here. Can I do it? No, I can't. It won't let me do it directly from here like you guys can. Let's see. Okay, I think that's basically the mainstay of what he had in his "I'm Hurt Now What." Get yourself a couple good first aid books. Dr. Alton and his wife Amy. He's a physician. She's a nurse. They have really good books. There's also what to do in case there is no doctor, what to do in case there is no dentist. The Altons have the prepper first aid book. They have an infectious disease book. They have another book on what to do in case of a pandemic and things like that. And so there's all kinds of fantastic books out there that you should have in your library. And I will also put a list. I'll tell you what. Next Monday, we'll just discuss that. We'll discuss first aid and a first aid library for preppers. And so, what are some of the books you should look for? Look for these books in half price and Goodwill. When you go to Goodwill and you go to a half price bookstore, just check out their medical first aid section. And don't order brand new stuff off Amazon. It's just going to cost you a whole bunch of money. Holly, I promise you that next Monday, I will spend that entire hour. We'll talk about medical books, medical channels that are fantastic here that you might want to subscribe to. I'll devote that whole hour to who are some of the great people who are putting out good first aid and medical information here on YouTube, and what are some of the better books. And I'll have links for those in the show notes. And that should help you. Jay, I am so sorry. I don't know. I really don't know. Make sure you hit the like button. I find out that if I want to make sure I get notified, I have to have liked a whole bunch of their videos. So if you aren't hitting likes for some reason, it doesn't give you very many notifications. But anyhow, so that's kind of what we will do next week. So what other questions do you have before we get ready to celebrate a Tuesday night nonfiction book club successful completion? Next week, we've got 2 more chapters. We've only got 5 chapters left. And I'm trying to decide whether we're going to do 2 next week. And yeah, we'll do 2 next week and then 3 for the last meeting. So the 2 next week are bartering and bickering and consumables. And then the last 3 that we'll do 2 weeks from tonight are going to be the juice, downtime, and hygiene. Hygiene is one that I'm really hot on. And so I'll give you some ideas on that one as well. So let me see. Yeah, but Jay, so here's kind of the schedule. We have been doing Monday nights at 8:00. And that's typically been interviews, and I may want to be interviewing Triple G Farms and get him on here and just interview him about some of his medical knowledge and some of his ideas. He really has some good info too. And then so if I don't have somebody to interview, then we kind of use it as a rambling session. Tuesday nights are the nonfiction, so basically the preparedness guides, handbooks. We're going to just be discussing those every Tuesday night at 8:00. And then starting 2 weeks from tonight, or 2 weeks from, let me see, Tuesday or Wednesday, the 19th. We're not going to have Monday the 17th. We're going to go to Wednesday the 19th. Then for 8 consecutive Wednesdays, we're going to be on Wednesday nights at 8:00 for our interviews and or discussions. Thursday nights, so this coming Thursday night, day after tomorrow, we're doing book 5 of A American's Survivalist series, and that's Resurrecting Home, this one here. And then the last Thursday of this month, which is the 27th, we're going to be doing volume 6, which is Enforcing Home. And then on the 20th, we have Steve Smith coming on, and we're going to be discussing in more detail. And of course, read the book and get your comments. And we'll be discussing his volume 6, Hostages to Fortune. Now, the good news is Steve sent me an entire set, volumes 1 through 6, of autographed books of his, which means now that my entire set 1 through 6 is available as a prize. So that's going to be one of those prizes, all 6 books. I'm going to give away all 6 of those to one person as a thank you when we get to our 10,000 subscription celebration. So make sure you spread the word if you want free books. Okay, with that, we are going to end this evening. So Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Remember, togetherness is the key, and the tongue is the thing that divides us. So be careful what you say to others, because you can drive them away so easily with a foul tongue. And all we need to do is be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, and we can attract so many more to what we want to accomplish in this world afterwards. So thank you all for being here. I truly, truly appreciate you. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button. When I get done with this, make sure that you put a comment in the comment section when you see it come back up. And that really helps us with all the log algorithms. There we go. Mouth work. Okay. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.